Let's work. I get it, bags, get it.
G'day and welcome to the Making It Myles podcast, where we talk about all things related to building and construction, as well as the real estate industry through the lens of a building inspector. As well as that, we also dabble in a little bit of personal development every now and then, because it's about making it here. So if we all get better, the world gets better, life gets better, and we have less shit in the world. So that's about it. On this episode, we'll be discussing a scenario that has occurred I've seen a couple of times with regards to the pre-purchase building inspection industry and some dodgy shite going on with it. And I'm just going to try and highlight the issues with sort of what's occurred, as well as that, what to look out for, especially moving forward if you are definitely purchasing a home or selling a home or whatever you're doing, or even if you are an inspector doing this type of shit. No bueno. So this happened probably about 3 months ago now. I had a real estate agent come out to me looking for some help and advice from a building inspection that got done on a property. So there was an initial buyer who got a building inspection done, and then there was the vendor itself. So the vendor, the whole sale dropped through because of the report. It was all horrible, all this type of stuff. And the vendor was in a situation where they were a bit concerned by the report because it seemed a bit biased. So I looked into it first with the actual agent themselves, got the report, read the report. It was pretty, wasn't the best report. It's probably 6 pages, a couple of pictures. Now, the defects on there were completely fair and reasonable. Like, I don't have any really qualms with them. Some were sort of expressed a bit more harshly than what they somewhat are. Yes, it was nominated as a major defect, but then they go into all this ramble about how fucking horrible it is for the property, where it wasn't as sort of bad. But again, that comes down to the inspector's personal opinion on the thing, which is completely fair and reasonable. I'm not going to argue that point at all. But a couple of things came out of the wash that sort of really, for one, sort of pissed me off to a degree, and sort of gave some advice to the agent to give them a bit of a chop out moving forward. So I read the report, 6 pages, got the images, makes sense, cool. They charged $1,200 for this report, I believe, which is quite expensive, to be honest. My charge was about $650 for something very similar, which, to be honest, is good money. There's nothing really concerns with that. But what we found is that the report itself, at the back end of the report, it had a breakdown estimate of what the actual costs would be to fix all the defects within the home. So you've got all the major defects. When you have a major defect here in Victoria, that's a trigger to exit the contract. It was here in Victoria, so that's part of the process. But then also this cost estimate. So this cost estimate said it was going to cost between $50,000 and $60,000 to rectify all the defects. So what's happening here is an inspector's gone in, done a report, gave it to the client, and the client's read that and gone, all right, I need to spend $50,000, $60,000 to fix all this shit on the home. And this comes down to a renegotiation thing too. So giving that number, there's a couple of issues with it. First things first, as per the Australian standard of what pre-purchase building inspections are meant to reflect and be, comply to, there is to be no estimate given. No estimate. You should never get any sort of cost estimate or any sort of cost breakdown within the report itself. Basically, that's it, really. You can't write the report and have a cost estimate in there. It's completely against the Australian standard. So first things first, I see that, I'm like, all right, well, fuck. The actual report itself doesn't even comply to the Australian standard. It's actually no bueno as it is. So I spoke to the agent, said to him in particular, I'm like, all right, mate, call this inspector and tell him to fucking get that shit off his report for one, because it's completely non-compliant. And he's saying that he inspects as per the Australian standard, but he's not obviously doing that. Okay, obviously that didn't even happen. It had to get just re-inspected. Now, another issue that came up with regards to that report as well is that they also had a little line item there that offered, if we were to, it was like a side hustle or a side contract, and it read in terms of, if we are to get this 50-60K off the sale of the property, then you pay us 10% of what we get off the home. So if you're getting 50 grand off, a $5 grand payout, fee to renegotiate the house. Now, this is very biased. Like, you can't, as a building inspector, it's not even my job to tell people to buy a house or not buy a house. For me, I personally believe there's no such thing as a pass or a fail. It's just, I know shit about building and issues, and I provide a report, and this is the house, and then it's my job to communicate what these issues are to the individuals, especially, and they're obviously, on a balance of probability, they're novice people as well, and just provide transparency. That's it. It's not for me to come in and then pump up this house like it's an absolute piece of shit and put it in a shine of light that it's absolutely horrible, and then put a cost estimate to say it's going to cost 50, 60 grand, which was not accurate. It would have been 50, 60 grand to fucking renovate all and fix every single tiny issue, including the minor defects. But with regards to sort of the major issues, which was more of a drainage issue, I could have estimated it at like maybe 12 grand at the most. with some change. So these type of tactics I've been seeing it within the real estate industry. This is one single story where I was sort of firsthand of what's going on, but I've also heard many stories from real estate agents, and this is what they're struggling with at the moment, with regards to the industry being a bit somewhat lucrative and a bit unregulated to a degree, where there are these individuals that are really shit talking down people's properties with the intent to gain some sort of other benefit. It might be a maintenance service. It might even be just so the actual sale itself falls through and they can get extra work out of it on the back end of that. All these things are actually happening within the real estate industry itself, and it is an absolute disgrace to see it, especially from the type of industry and type of individuals that I respect, which are professionals that know a shitload about building. For people to do these types of things is an absolute piss take. And what I'm sort of saying is that these aren't the good inspectors. These are obviously the shit inspectors. Now, they may know some things about construction, which is, obviously you need to know something to make some sort of report make sense. But it's really causing a lot of heat and a lot of drama and a lot of conflict, and it's not really benefiting what the whole point of the service is. Now, it is a high ticket service, so a lot of people do take advantage of that and feel like because there's not a lot of competition within the market, they do get a lot of work. And for me personally, this is not what I am intending to do with Oz Property Report, which is going to help try solve this problem, but just providing more trusted and actually like professional clarity and transparency with regards to a structure itself. Okay, a couple of things to note: if you sort of feel you're going to come across this issue, you might be a real estate agent themselves, you might be a vendor that's getting shafted by a building inspector. Have conversations with that building inspector and get some clarity around the actual report itself. Okay, so the first things first, if you do get like a shitty building report in regards to your property, and I've had this happen to me numerous times, and again, this happened to another property only probably about a week ago, where the client called up in tears, freaking out over the actual property that I inspected. And it don't get me wrong, it breaks my heart to tell these people that there are issues within this property, and it's our job as on the day of the inspection to inspect the property for what it is. And in some circumstances, not a lot of people understand that if they don't look after their house, or there are issues that have no idea about, like this can sort of accumulate over a period of time, and when you go to sell it, you can be up shit creek without a paddle and half drowning. So what I say to people in those situations is you need to somewhat challenge the inspector for their knowledge base. All right. Now, I think that's completely fair and reasonable. I do it to me doctor. I do it to a lot of professional people because I fucking just want to know that I'm getting the right information from the right person and they know their shit. So I ask questions, and I've always done that, and ask a shitload of questions. So in this situation, if you do feel you've been bump steered by your inspector and they've you're up to like the third inspection of a property and another one fails, or you might be a conveyancer in the same situation, your poor client's getting shafted by a shitty inspector, or you've got this whole fucking side hustle renegotiation of contracts thing, which is completely wrong and disgraceful. You need to really hold those inspectors accountable for what they are delivering. They are delivering a service that is meant to be independent. They do have professional indemnity insurance. Like, what they say, you can fall back onto it. And it can even go to a point where if the building inspector themselves is starting to, like, what we would say is, blow up a defect to a degree to cover their ass, air quotation marks for the ones listening. There are people like that to try help protect their insurances because they're concerned about that they might get sued for missing something or something along those lines. Those things do occur 100%. But to do that just to cover your ass doesn't really, benefit the buyer themselves. It doesn't benefit the vendor. It doesn't benefit anyone. You're just covering your ass, making some cash, doing the Harold Holt. Ask the questions about every single defect. Every single defect that comes up, ask a question. Why? Why is this defective? What are the issues that can occur? How can this be caused? How can I rectify it? Get clarity. If they can't answer those questions and in their report it just simply says cracked a brickwork, seek engineer, that means fuck all. All right? That actually means they have no fucking clue about anything and they're just talking shit and just trying to handball it over to the next person, which from a buyer's perspective, if I was a buyer and I got that, I'm sitting here freaking out thinking, oh shit, I need to speak to an engineer. And all of a sudden, it's the crack is just general movement. And he wanted an engineer to approve to say that's what it was. Now, that's not a professional. That's not a person that knows what they're looking at. Usually, for me personally, if there's a crack on brickwork, that can mean multiple things based on other multiple scenarios, what's going on with the house itself, right? You can put it to general movement. You can put it to it could be the start of something a bit more sinister. It might be related to some rising damp and there's some crackage issues. There's a lot of scenarios that could occur during this time frame. And the conversations I have with these clients when they do call me, or usually I call them and have a conversation first, but with the vendors that sort of come at me pretty hard, I have the answers because I somewhat, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm looking at. And there's only been a couple of times where I'm like got to a point where I just have no clue as to how this possible situation could occur. And it's usually based on some sort of weird building design or something like that, where an engineer would have to come in to really facilitate that process, to give clarity and to give confidence that everything is okay moving forward. But from my perspective as the GP, in the building industry, is like, all right, well, this is what I see, and it looks like a bit of a doozy. And then you get the specialists in to really clarify what's going on. Ask as many questions. If these inspectors can't really give you an honest, open answer and be really clear and explain what the actual situation is, most likely they have no clue what they're talking about, and you've probably got yourself a bump steer. I'd be looking for another inspector after that date. If your builder inspector is offering you additional services like, oh, we can do the maintenance on this, we can rectify this, I know, or we can renegotiate the contract itself, and we can take $50,000 off the house. These are not the type of inspectors that you want, all right? As building inspectors, we make some pretty good money just doing our job off the bat. So for them to sort of really push all these types of things, there's some incentive for them to do it. The report itself, there's bias to the report, which you don't want, okay? The conversation the inspector has with the buyer should be the exact same conversation they have with a vendor, the exact same conversation with the agent, conveyancer, mortgage broker, the buyer's grandmother's sister's builder's friend, and the vendor's dog walker's uncle's carpenter mate. It doesn't matter. It's just more or less, this is what we've captured, this is what it is. So just to sort of recap, I just want to be mindful that within the industry itself, it is a bit unregulated and a bit, there's a lot of people there's a lot of bad characters really just taking advantage of individuals for one of the biggest purchases of their life, okay? Make sure you do try as best as you can to pre-qualify some of your inspectors themselves. Ways in which I would do that is, first things first, go to the website, suss them out. Look about their about us. Like, do they have any story about how they're trying to express how good they are in regards to their qualifications and all those types of things. Make sure they meet your contractual obligations. If you're in Victoria, a registered building practitioner usually is the line item that is noted to get exit the contract, so the inspector needs to be a registered building practitioner. Other states is a little bit more of doesn't really reflect that as much. Queensland is very similar with their registered trades, and then other states you can just work at Coles and then inspect the next day. All right, so you obviously want to go pre-qualify them for their qualifications, and then call them up and just have a conversation with them. Ask them what their processes are. Ask them how they go about it. Maybe even ask how long they're on site. To be honest, hour and a half on site is pretty reasonable for a building inspection. That's pretty much what it takes for me, unless the house is big and there's a subfloor and it takes ages, or there's a lot of issues that you need to sort of knuckle down, because most of the time, I'll do my reports at night time. So it's, and there's fucking plenty of time spent on that to really word it correctly to help provide that value to the client. Ask these questions, just get some more information out of them. If you pick up the phone and they can't even have that conversation with you and just give you a breakdown of what the report includes, give you some clarity of like, all right, what we do is we call you after we're done on site to have a bit of a chin wag. You'll get the report the same day. If you have any questions or queries, we'll be here to sort of follow up at the back end of it. Like, that's the type of individual that you need sort of inspecting the biggest investment of your property. Biggest investment of your life, which will be your property. Just make sure you're doing the steps. If you're coming across inspectors that are offering a shitload of additional services at the back end of it, they're not communicating with you. They're just sort of going out, pumping out a report and just sending it on your way. Be mindful of these individuals, ones that are trying to offer you, taking off fucking 60 grand from the house and getting a kickback from it. Avoid that at all costs. And people that put estimates within their reports themselves. If you've actually read the standard, it's pretty clear that it says it in there. It shouldn't really be in there. Now, that being said, I do this. It's something that I do if a client recommends it, has a question with regards to sort of scopes. For me, I usually push them to say, get the professionals out to price the job itself, and then you'll know the number, what it's going to be, and then you can move forward with that. Okay, if the property itself does have major defects, well, then you can start slow and reel it back in. You're in control now because you do have the capacity to exit the contract, so you can slow it down and get these professionals in to price it all out. Or if the scope is something I can actually see, which would be pretty like a bathroom renovation, it's not part of the report, but it could be a conversation you have with a client. It's just like, just so you know, like a bathroom renovation is roughly between 20 grand, 35 grand. Very variable, but that's what they are these days based on like this type of home. That's probably as far as you'll find some good quality building inspectors going with it. Some guys that I do knock around with who are very good at what they do and I listen to them. I listen to what they say, and I do trust what they say. They've gone to a point where they just don't even recommend anyone to go and help out with regards to getting more clarity on the property. They've just got to the point now where they used to recommend a plumber, and then it was a shit client, and the plumber's mate's just like, mate, you just shafted me with this person. Like, they absolutely fucked me over. And they can also go both ways as well, where the client's like, oh, this is the worst plumber ever, and your plumber's like, well, I kind of did what I had to do, and there's just dispute. So they got to a point, they're like, nah, fuck it. I'll do the report to the best of my abilities with everything I've got, and that's the product I'm am paid to supply, and then everything else is just sorry, I'm not going to have a bar of it. So have these conversations, make sure you're making informed decisions. The best clients that I come across are the ones that really put some effort into understanding who their inspector is during these situations. And watch out for the doozies, the guys that are trying to shaft the system, the guys that are fucking doing 12 inspections a day and they're there for 20 minutes. That's not realistic, okay? I hear it all the time from agents. There's inspectors that literally walk in and out in 30 minutes and don't go on the roof and don't get under the house, and they just make up some shit. Those people exist. I don't know how they're still in business, because they fucking shouldn't be, but they do still exist, and they are absolutely rotting the system. I do feel that the tides will change over a period of time. I think with more exposure to this industry, we're going to get some really good people from the building industry itself jump over to do building inspections, which I think is a positive thing. There's a lot of people out there that obviously want to get off the tools and do some sort of different trade. I never knew this industry existed, to be honest, until I was in a car getting driven to work because I was poor. And the guy I was going to buy like a motorbike because I was trying to save money getting into work. And DG suggested, oh, mate, why don't you just do building inspections as like a cashier on the side for real estate agents? I was like, fuck, what is that? So, I think with more exposure, we're going to get some much better quality inspectors in. And I think moving forward is what I'm going to try and do with Oz Property Report, which is a new company we're launching very soon, actually, is set a standard for what's acceptable and what's not acceptable, and try help educate these individuals just like yourself listening that are buying, selling, or you may be an inspector yourself or a mortgage broker or whatever you are in the realm, to really get clear as to what we do and what we do not do to help provide a bit more clarity and transparency within the industry itself. We want less non-bias. We want less corrupt reports and inspectors that are trying to really shaft the industry itself. And we want more transparency and clarity so we can actually be really open and honest about what we're doing here, which is we're buying a house and we're selling a house, and this is the condition of the house in the middle, and you just pay for what it's sort of worth. It's pretty basic, I believe, but it seems to be a bit more complex than that. So be mindful of that. These are the issues that I do come across. They are wrong. Be wary of it. Be careful of it. Don't get sucked into it. It's not going to benefit you at all. And I hope if this is provide any value to anyone in regards to the building inspection industry itself, or you're a buyer or an agent or a seller or whatever you're doing, please give it a share and subscribe to all the bits and bobs, so we can build this community up and really help provide more clarity to more people. And then we'll see you on the next one. Who bloody rude.
Let's work. I get it.